And we are live. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to have you here with us. And today we're going to be interviewing a good friend of mine, Paula, and she's going to tell us about her business and what she does and human design. So thank you for joining us. If you haven't liked our YouTube channel yet, please do so. If you click on that little bell below, it'll notify you when we go live like this. And Paula, you want to just kind of get started, and then as we go through, we'll ask questions if anybody has a question for you.
Absolutely. I think that would be great. First of all, thank you all for having me. It's a delight to be here. Pamela, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to share, I swear, no death by PowerPoint, but I have just like 5 slides to help keep me focused, if that's all right. And this will be my first time to share it. Do I start broadcast? Is that what I do?
Let me give you, I should be able to give you permission to share. Just a second.
Okay.
And I'm also going to change your name so it shows you as Paula.
Oh, what is it showing me as?
A Zoom.
Just Zoom. That's me. I'm Zoom. Rebecca, it's nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you.
I've seen some of your videos, and also hello to YouTube. Well, Pamela gives me permission.
You should have it.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to try to do this, okay? Okay, it should be just a second. Do you see it? There we go.
So you're sharing your screen.
Ah, lovely. All right. So today we're going to talk about what is human design. And again, thank you so much for inviting me to Lightworkers Secrets to Success Live. Today is August 22nd, 2022. And during our time today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and my new business and give you a human design overview, just hit kind of the top points, and then why you might be interested in human design. And then we'll open it up for questions. And of course, at any time, if I confuse you, you need clarification, you have a question, just holler. So my story, I was been in corporate America now for 22 years. I started in my adult life in retail and was a merchant and was a retail manager, was a training manager. I married Jim very young, got married at 21. And we had 2 beautiful girls, Rachel and Katie. And I was busy being a mom and being a worker bee. And then when the girls were quite young, we moved to Oklahoma. And I decided that I wanted to spend more time with them. I didn't want to work nights and weekends. And I made a daycare in my home. So I had a licensed daycare in my home. I wrote my own preschool curriculum, got a van, took them on field trips. And I did that for an entire season. And I had the same little group of girls from the time they were not quite 2 until they all went to school. And during that time, my husband became disabled with his back. And when it was time for him to go back to work, he couldn't. And I went looking for insurance, and I could find insurance for the girls and I, but I couldn't find it for Jim. And we had just started the Social Security process. And I thought, I need a job and I don't want to go back to retail. So I called one of my former daycare moms and said, I don't know if I have any skills that could possibly transfer to an office, but what do you think? Can I send you my resume? This will really date me. I faxed her my resume from my home PC. That was a trip. And she looked at it and she said, can you come in Friday for an interview? And I thought I was interviewing for a bank. I had no idea what she did. I only know she worked in corporate America and that she worked for a big company in HR. Well, it was an insurance company. And I had an interview and I started there in customer service and worked my way up to an underwriter in about 6 months. And then I went into risk management, working with actuaries as a para-actuary, even though I really didn't have a math background, rating the policies and doing renewals for groups. My company sells mainly disability insurance, a little life insurance, and some accident. And then a few years into that, in 2006, I started in 2000. In 2006, an opportunity came my way. And they said, hey, we want change agents. Would you interview for this opportunity? I said, sure, sounds great. So I went to training for something called Lean, which is a process improvement methodology, fell in love with it and ended up doing it full time and got promoted up from within with the company and helped the company with change management, process improvement, Lean, Six Sigma, for a number of years now. Started off as an employee, got promoted to a team leader and a manager and a director, and I run the process improvement team for my entire company and train other people in the organization. But that's not really my job. So my title is that, right? But my real job is developing colleagues and coaching them. And that's what I love. I love when I can really help somebody turn their career around and really fulfill their dreams. So I see myself as a coach and a people developer. So fast forward all this time personally. My husband continued to be disabled with a lot of back things, years and years of pain, surgeries. I think we were about 15 surgeries on his back and neck. And during that time, I'm a very high energy kind of a person, and I did it all. I did everything with the kids when he couldn't. I did everything with the job. I did all the things for a while. I was highly involved in church and taught Sunday school, ran a large Sunday school program, in addition to going back and getting my degree during all of this time. And I was burnt out, y'all. So I found myself, I landed on the other side of all of this in my mid-50s, having gone 120 miles an hour every day for years and years and years. And quite frankly, unfortunately, being a martyr about it, taking it all on and thinking I didn't deserve anything. I stood at a crossroads, right? I stood at a fork in the road and I said, do I want to be a miserable, bitter old woman in a few years when I retire? Or do I want to find myself again and discover myself again and live and have a wonderful second half of my life? And I made the decision that day to go for it, to discover who I was and to have a wonderful second half. I tried a few different things, journaling, right? Listening to podcasts, and I went to therapy a little bit. And therapist told me there was nothing wrong with me and for me to journal and do a few things. And she was pretty much done with me. And then 2020 hit and we were quarantined all at home. My entire company went home. And I was used to being in the office. And I am a people person, and it was really hard. And I took a good long look at myself. And I started working with a lady from my chiropractor's office named Ashley. And we started off doing a virtual coaching for exercises. Among other things, she's been a personal trainer. And we would get together a couple times a week and I would do a workout and we'd talk. And she also does some other modalities of healing in the chiropractor's office. And I would go see her sometimes. And we always just really had a great connection. And we would start to talk about different things. And she's got younger children and I would give her advice about that. And she with me. And then she said, hey, I really think you'd benefit from this thing called human design. Would you let me do a reading? And then we can discuss if you want to continue with coaching or not. And I said, absolutely, I definitely would. At this point, I was feeling a little better about myself. but I was still feeling pretty lost. And that first session that I did with Ashley, when she told me what my human design type was and how I should be making decisions and what my strategy was, it just all really became apparent. And I had been subscribing to the kind of train of thought of I should go out there and make it happen, right? That I should go make it happen. And my whole life, that had been my mantra at work. I can make that happen. And many times when I would do that, I would find that I hit a wall, right? I would expend all of this energy and nothing happened. And I learned, and we'll discuss later when we discuss the types, I learned that my strategy should be to wait to respond. I should wait until I have something to respond to, and then trust my gut, trust my sacral with my yes or my no. And I started to live that way. And I had many stories from the past, especially at work, that I did trust my sacral. I did wait until somebody brought me something, or I had something else external to respond to. And that was almost always wildly successful. I am a very successful business person still in corporate America. I am an assistant vice president at my company, and I've done some things right. I have 2 beautiful adult children, and it just dawned on me the difference between when I was living in my design and when I wasn't living in my design. And then the big work and the big epiphany happened. We'll learn about gates here in a few minutes. And each gate that is associated with my personal design has a shadow. And so when you're living in the shadow part, you're always you, right? But you're either living in a low vibration or a higher vibration. And when you're living in that lower vibration, that's your shadow. And that you can work through and let go of some things, or burn them away, or heal them, or heal your inner child. And what's the work you need to do to move on from the shadow and step into what they call challenge, and then live in mastery, right? Live in that higher vibration. And as I started to learn and to work through these shadows, which I still am, I am quite a ways into the journey, but I don't know that it's ever complete. I started to notice more and more alignment. And I was trusting myself and my inner source. For me, spiritually, that would be the spirit or my source. It's different things for different people. And when I found that I was aligned, things were so easy, and things became easy and fun. And then came my business. So I had a dream, first of all, that I would retire early. I just celebrated my 60th birthday, and I want to retire before 65 from corporate America, very, very much. And I've been working on paying off all of our debt so that we can do that. And I knew that I wanted to still have some work that was meaningful to me, because that's part of my design, right? Is to do something I love. And I love coaching. I love coaching, especially young women, right? And I was talking to a mentor one day and talking about my story, and talked about a fork in the road. And she said, "That's it, fork coaching." And I laughed and I said, "Fork coaching is so silly." And she said, "No, it's perfect. Explain it. It's all about being at the fork of the road," right? She says, "That's what you do at work all day. You have employees, you have colleagues that you work with, and they're in a fork in their career. And what you do is help them through that." And I've had the dream for a while to do that. And I wasn't exactly sure how that would manifest. And one day, another young woman named Molly that does human design they're designing an app and a platform that will be for women of all ages. And she asked me, right, "Paula, what do you think? Would you like to do human design coaching?" And I didn't have to sit with it very long at that point. And I trusted my sacral gut, and I said, "Absolutely, I would." And that felt so good. It was satisfaction. and I knew that I had made an aligned decision. And so since that point, I have been diligently studying and learning about design. I've had a few readings. One of them was Pamela. She was my very first one. She was my guinea pig. Thank you, Pamela. And she gave me some great feedback and coaching on how to improve that. And then since then, I actually have my first client. And so I'm very, very excited to continue this journey and see where it's going. So before we move on and talk about human design, do you all have any questions about my story?
Well, that's pretty awesome. And I can relate with retail because I also am from retail. But I'm from Canada originally, so I ran big stores up there. And although it's fun, it's also very challenging and lots of energy, lots of long days, and you get burnt out pretty quick. So I can relate where you're coming from there. And I'm excited to hear about human design coaching because it sounds interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that before. So see where that goes.
Excellent. I hadn't either. Something new. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I think mid-50s is a good time to think about leaving corporate. That's when I left my airline career that I had for 35 years when I was 56, which was 20 years ago this month. And I don't regret it, even though I loved it when I was doing it. But it's much more freeing to be able to coach people and check out all this other good stuff.
Excellent. Thank you for the encouragement. I love that.
Paula, I like when you said that when you're in alignment, it's more fun, right? When you're in alignment with your divine blueprint and your purpose here on earth, it's not really work, even though it's work technically, but it's just so much fun because you do it for free.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on. Human design. These are just a few notes, mainly to keep me in line. So, Ra-Uruhu, what in the heck is that, y'all? Ra-Uruhu. So, Ra-Uruhu was the human design system's founder and messenger. And his name was Richard. And I don't remember his last name at this point, but he actually was in business world, in advertising. He was a magazine publisher. And then in the early 80s, he went to Spain. And he was several years in Spain as a school teacher. And he was on the island of, I cannot pronounce this, y'all, L-B-I-Z-A.
Ibiza.
Okay. Ibiza, yes. He was there and he was being a school teacher. And in 1987, he had quite the event happen. It was very mystical, and there was a voice, and the voice visited him for 8 days, during which time he received the transmission of information that is known as human design today. And he was told that very few people had received the transmission, but that human design was for everyone. And he spent the next 25 years of his life until he died to the development and teaching of the system around the world. So pretty neat. There are some old recordings of him out on the internet. I've been listening to some of those too and absorbing that. Of course, they are very long because it was the 90s, y'all. So they're like an hour and a half each, but so much amazing information. So in human design, you have a human design chart, also called a body graph, and we're going to see one in a minute. It is calculated using your birth date, time, and place to reveal your genetic design. It synthesizes several things, okay? The I Ching, and the I Ching is also called the Book of Challenges, and it is the oldest of the Chinese classic texts. And it is a divination tool that has been used for over 3,000 years in China. It has interestingly, 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, and each are linked in human design to the 64 gates. And really interesting, if you know anything about DNA, is there are 64 constants in DNA. And so this really is the blueprint, like our friend mentioned, right? This is the blueprint of who we are. This is not in any way, shape, or form any kind of a religion. Anybody can benefit from human design. So it also astrology. You'll see that, of course, your birth date, time, and place, right, are also used to run your astrological chart. And you will see the astrology planet signs on a chart in a moment. Also, the Kabbalah tree of life. The body chart upside down looks like the Kabbalah tree of life. It is an ancient Jewish symbol. And the chakra system. So we have the chakra system, which we're probably all familiar with. And if you're not, you will be once you look at it. You're like, oh, I know, that's the chakras, right? All right. And then somebody said quantum physics. And I was like, what? What do you mean quantum physics? I actually just read this. This blew my mind. I read this yesterday. So regular physics describes the universe on a large scale. Quantum physics describes the universe on a smaller scale at the atom and particle level. And they said that weighting is the space between particles. And it's what allows us to flow from where we are now to where we need to be or where we want to be. And weighting, as you'll find out, is part of all of our human designs. We don't want to wait, right? Who likes to wait? Not me. And they said the mind does not allow the unfolding of life, but the mind has nothing to do with the timing of the universe. And that just kind of blew my mind. I said, how many times have I tried to force something? I've tried to manifest something, right, in my own timing. And yet, if I just relax and align and let myself be, right, then all of a sudden, that timing appears and what you're trying to manifest happens. So anyways, thought that was interesting. And of course, your unique energies, which we'll talk about in a moment. All right, so let's get into the body graph. Don't be scared, all right? It is a little graph here. So at its root, human design is all about your energy. Right? It's all about your human design chart is all about your personal energy and how that energy moves through you. Okay. It teaches us about power and the possibilities that we have. And it's pretty cool, as you'll see in a minute. It's your personal kind of electric schematic. It shows you what kind of energies are consistent for you, and which are energies you're going to take in from the world around you. And when you know that, when you understand the energy that you're able to consistently tap into, and that which is, dependent on what's going around along with that or around you, and you take that and your inner authority, which we'll talk about, then it's amazing how easy life and fun, right, life can become. All right, so you'll see a few things on this. First, you see the body graph in a minute, in the center, right? And you notice here what looks like the chakras, right, in the body graph. So you'll notice at the very top of the graph is the head. And that's the very top. In this particular graph, it's open. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And the head is for inspiration. Then below the head is the ajna, and the ajna is about certainty, right? I know that I know that I know. Then we have the throat, and that is about communication and action, right? How easy it is for you to speak your truth. And then identity is next, and that is the yellow on the graph there, and that is self, love, life direction. Then we have your emotional solar plexus, and that is about emotional clarity. And then that's the pink, And then at the bottom, we have the root chakra, which is all about adrenaline energy. It's a pulsing energy. And then the sacral over to the right, the brown one on my right, is workforce and life force energy. And then on the left, the white one on the left is the spleen. Survival, intuition, your immune system, and time. Think about your spleen. That is the feeling I got right before we met live, where my spleen was trying to tell me lions were going to eat me. The spleen is fight or flight survival. Now, were lions really going to eat me? No, it was all of you nice people here, right? On the go live. But that's that same feeling, right, that you get, that comes from your spleen. So if a center is colored, it's defined. So on this sample graph, there are several defined centers. And all that means is that the energy, you radiate this energy out to the world consistently, and you have consistent access to this energy all of the time. That is great. It doesn't matter if there's any other independent of any other factors in your environment. So you may notice there are people in the world, and I would imagine some people on this call, that you can speak anytime to anyone, anywhere about anything, right? You know who you are, and you probably have a defined throat, and you don't have a problem. You have energy for that. You can always speak your truth. People, though, that don't have a defined truth, they may struggle sometimes with that. They may feel that they can't speak up or have a harder time, or it may be situational for them when they speak. So if a center is white, it's undefined or open. And open centers take in and amplify the energy from and information from the world. And there are pros and cons of both. It's not bad. We all have open, except for one design that we'll see in a little bit. We all have open centers, right? And we all have defined or closed centers, all of us, right? But on the open centers, the energy is inconsistent because it depends on who you're with. The great illustration of this is the will center. I have an open will center, right? Which means that willpower isn't something that comes easy for me. People with an open will center might find it hard to stick to a new exercise program. They might find it hard to start a new way of eating, right? And stick to it over time. People with a defined will center, they find it extremely easy. If they tell you they're going to stop eating chocolate, then by God, they're going to stop eating chocolate. Now, those of us who don't have a defined will center, if we're in the aura, right, of that person that has the defined will center, we feel like we can take on the world. But then after we get out of their aura, we may slip up, right? Because we had a really stressful day and our boss was mean to us and we want chocolate. And it doesn't mean that we cannot make commitments and keep commitments. We just have to do them in a different way. Maybe you make a contract with yourself and sign it. Maybe you make promises to other people. You still have ways to make and keep commitments. You're just not going to power out willpower to do it. It won't be in your design. All right, there are 4 centers on the map, the body graph, that are the motors. The sacral center is one. And we'll find out in a moment that, and I will say that I am a generator and that a good deal of the world are generators. And we always have a closed sacral center. It's our motor. And we'll learn about that motor. There's also the will center, the root center, and the emotional solar plexus. And those motors define the kind of energy you have. So if somebody has has an emotional solar plexus, they make decisions when it feels right. They need that emotional wave. And I would bet that there is at least one person on the call today who has an emotional solar plexus. Is how they should make decisions. That's their authority, right? They should not make a decision until it feels right. I have a sacral center is my defined motor. And that is my yes and my no, right? My gut feeling. So those are our motors. The root center, if that's a really interesting one. That's your adrenaline, and that root center pulses, and it gives you pulsing energy. And the energy that comes from the root isn't always consistent. And this is what happens with people who have that as their authority. And you will automatically nod your head if this is you, is when you have the energy to do it, you do it. And when you don't, nothing gets done. So if you are coming from the root center and that's your authority, you'll know, right? That's your energy, that's your motor. Okay, just one more thing about these centers. The head and the root are what we call pressure centers. And the head center can be a source of mental pressure. When it is open or undefined, you might really feel a lot of pressure to figure things out, or feel like you always need to find the answers to your questions. And the head is just one of those places that we don't need to live there. That's a challenging statement for some of you. It is for me, but it's true. All right. And again, we talked about the root center is for adrenaline. If you have an open, right, root center, then you might experience the pressure you might experience would be getting things done in order to feel free. Mine is closed, so I don't feel that, but I have done charts for a couple of people who had an open root center, and they absolutely resonated with that. One of my children is that way. And we found that they have this pressure to just get it all done, because once it's all done, then I can be free to play. And I don't want to put off playing until the things are done. Okay, everybody, crack your neck. We're getting there. At the top, you will see we have red and black, personality and design. Okay, so your unconscious personality is the red elements on your birth chart. It's your design. There are aspects of your personality that are consistent from the time of your birth, but may be unconscious. You may not recognize these aspects. Those of us who are at a certain age probably do. But if you're coaching or if you're working with younger folks, they may not know that yet, right? And you may also not have a lot of control over those aspects of your personality. The elements that are in black are the things you are absolutely consciously aware of. And to a certain degree, you have control over them. You're going to see numbers, right? Remember I talked about 64 gates? You'll notice here that on the human design chart, on each center, there are numbers. And there's a total of 64 numbers. And you'll notice on this chart that not all of them are circled. The ones that are circled are the gates that are the most prominent for this particular person's chart. Some people have fewer gates, some people have more gates. Okay, and then you'll notice under design and personality, you'll see the gate numbers. They're the gate numbers. And then a smaller number is called a gate line number. And the lines are those black and red lines on the chart that connect centers or partially connect centers. And those are all about your profile, right? Who you are, what your story is in life. And I tell you what, it is eerily fascinating. Everyone that I've talked to so far, if not all of their chart has resonated with them, most of their chart has resonated with them. It's been like, absolutely, that's how I am, right? It's been pretty interesting. There's also the planetary symbols that are on there, and those indicate astrological positions of the energy on your chart at the moment of birth. And for people that actually know how to construct an entire chart by hand and not use one of the handy tools out on the internet, it does play into your chart. Okay, that was a super lot about the body graph, but I just wanted to give you a overview. What questions do we have about the body graph?
So what do you need to do it? The birth date and time of birth, like an astrologer?
Yeah. And the location, birth date, time, and location, right? And that aligns everything that was happening at your birth, and you get a chart, and then you usually get a little bit of information. And there are places out there where you can run it for free, right? I'm also going to offer running them for folks and doing a short session with everyone just about some of the basics on their chart. And then after that, you either need to do a lot of digging on your own, or you need to work with some, like buy books and, do a lot of research on what all the things mean, or you can work with a coach to go forward. And we'll talk more about some things that you can do with the information. Great question. Thank you so much.
One of the things that I was fascinated with Paula was when you talked, like, because my sacral is defined. So that sense of yes or no, knowing, intuitively just knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, for me, was really interesting. It's like, yeah, I know that.
Uh-huh. And you knew that it was right? But you also know, what do you do? What happens when you try to make a decision with your head?
I overthink things.
Yes. Right. Me too. Every time, right? We overthink things. Absolutely.
So Paula,
Right. Yeah.
what do the red numbers mean that are like outlined in red? What does that mean?
On the body graph that are
Yeah.
circled in red,
Yeah.
that are the gates, right? That correspond to this person's chart. So when your chart is run, any circled gate, and depending on what website you use, they may or may not be red, right? They may be black, but when they're circled in like that, that means those gates are directly respond to you, right? And to your life and to your chart. And again, some of the real work and healing that can come from this is learning that for each one of those gates, there is shadow, right? You're living in a low vibration, and there's mastery. And then that's where the real work is getting to recognize when you're in shadow. And then what are the things you can do to rewrite your story so that you are living more consistently at a higher vibration. Make sense?
It does. And then what do the red lines and the black lines mean?
Those are channels, and they will connect. They are the channel lines, and you'll see the small number under design and personality, like there's gate 60.4. Mm-hmm. And so that 0.4, that smaller number, is one of the channels. And all of the channels will make up kind of your profile, right? Or who you are, what your role is to play in the world.
Got it. Interesting. Wow, it's a lot of information, but it sounds
it's a lot.
Really cool.
I know. And there's so much more. I try to synthesize it all down. All right, we're going to move on. We ready?
Yes.
Okay. There are 5 energy types, which is great. Manifestors. Let's start with manifestors. Manifestors are fascinating individuals. They are energetic, powerful, effective, impulsive, mysterious, and they are only 9% of the population. This does not mean that none of the rest of us can manifest anything. This is not what it means, okay? This means that a manifestor by personality is they can initiate anything, right? They can go make things happen. They generally do not need to wait. And they have a lot of energy, and they can get a lot done. However, a manifestor can be a big old freight train. They can get on, they are driving that train, and they are going so fast. And there might be people that want to get on the train, right? But they are blowing right past them. They normally don't tell anyone what they're doing. They're just going to go and make all the things happen. And they can be very successful. They can also leave a wake of people in their path that are hurt, right? Because they didn't do something called inform them. And the strategy for a manifestor should be to inform. Take a minute and inform everybody about that you care about, right? Or that'll be affected about what you're going to do before you go steamroller it. They also don't like to be stopped. Once they get in their role of doing their thing and making their thing happen, they do not want to get stopped at all. And I think it would be very challenging to parent a manifestor child, because they would not want to be, even more than a normal child, they would not want to be stopped from building the Legos or whatever they were doing, right? Because they are in the zone. So manifestors are extremely powerful. And back in the day, back in the ancient times, they were generally rulers, right? They were the ones who were getting everything done because they can initiate. What's really interesting about them is they initiate and they go. Some manifestors can complete, but not always. They don't have the same kind of consistent energy as like a generator does, and so they cannot always complete. They need generators, and you'll notice between generators and manifesting generators, that is about 70% of the entire population of the world. Pure generators, that's what I am, that's what Pamela is. We're pure generators. We are batteries. And in ancient times, that manifestor was probably the king, the pharaoh, the overseer, right? And unfortunately, Pamela and I back in the day might have been slaves, because we had energy. We could go and go and go and go and go and go until we burn ourselves out. The generators have a lot of energy, but as we learn, generators should wait to respond. And we are here to work. Generators are here to work, but we should be here to work, do work we love, right? Because when we do work we love, it's not work, we love it. And we're here to work and get things done and give love. Manifesting generators, and a generator is strategy is wait to respond. A manifesting generator is half of that equation, and they have some manifestor traits. So they're also able to sometimes initiate and complete. And so they should first wait to respond and then inform. So there's manifesting generators. Projectors. Roughly 20% of the population are projectors. The gift of a projector is to manage, guide, and direct others. The aura of a projector says, ask me a question. I know the answer. I'd love to share it with you. And you may know someone like that, right? You may know someone who is truly that guide. And they're really, really good at it. And a healthy projector has no bitterness or desperation. They simply wait, because their strategy is to wait for the invitation. If they're healthy, they wait. And then we're not talking about every little decision like a generator. Every little decision for a generator, right, is respond all day, whether it's big or little. But a projector, it's wait to respond, and it's wait for an invitation, and it's usually the big things in life: a job, a family, love, a business opportunity. They're waiting for an invitation. And you know what? The manifestors and the generators, if we work together with great projectors, we're guided and set free to make use of our energy in the best way. All right, finally, we have that reflector. And you remember back on the body graph that had some closed centers and some open centers. A reflector is actually slightly less than 1% of the population. And a reflector has all open centers. And literally, they have no inner authority. They only know truth when they see it and reflect it through others. So they take in everything that's around them, in the world around them, and reflect it back. The purpose of a reflector is to reflect the health of their community. If they're a happy reflector, they're from a happy community. If they're a miserable one, they live in a miserable community. And their strategies actually should be to wait 28 days before they do anything, to wait a full cycle. And that, I've never met a reflector yet. I know 2 other people who do human design coaching. They have not met a reflector yet. And I've read several books now, and by folks who have been doing this for years, and they've only met a couple in their whole lives. So they're just extremely rare. So what questions do you have about the energy types? You are one of these.
Would it be good to be a reflector, or would they be miserable psychologically?
It depends on the community you live in.
So they rely on other people to make them happy.
They reflect other people. Yes.
That's not
they're a very rare bird. And if we function well as a society, man, we would really covet them and protect them, right? And there just aren't very many of them. So,
wow.
All right. Other questions about energy types?
It's just very fascinating. And, as you're going through them, I think we all are thinking the same thing, like, what are they?
Of course you are.
Very, very fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I'm like, what am I? Right? It was all interesting to find out. And then, of course, I'm like, what is my husband? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, example of the shadow side. Let's say you're a manifestor. What's the shadow side of the manifestor?
So it's not of the manifestor, it's of the gate. Okay. And so the gates are, hold on, let me bring up my design real quick on my phone. And like gate 5 is called consistency. And it's all about, do you have consistent habits in your life, right, that help you stay aligned and at a higher vibration? And the shadow part of that is that you basically just go and go and go, and you don't have anything. You're too busy to have consistent practices that take care of yourself, right? And then, of course, the mastery is you have habits and choices in line, right, that to take care of yourself and move forward. So each gate is different. It's all just a different aspect of your makeup and personality, because there's 64 gates, and you only have some of them that are attached to your design. So
which I think is what's, I'm sorry, Paula.
Go ahead.
That's
go ahead.
That's because, like you said, you're a generator, as am I, but we each have different gates that are closed.
Correct.
And defined.
Yes.
And so the areas of your gates are different than the gates I have, even though we're both generators. Mm-hmm. So that is what makes it even more unique.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think there's 20,000 possible combinations of people.
Wow.
That's a lot. It's fascinating. Definitely. All right. So why human design? Live as your true authentic self. I was not living as my true authentic self. And I read something about that in pain, that basically it's one of the greatest sources of pain is a disconnect between who you perceive yourself to be and your authentic self. And that when you remember and you get back to who your authentic self is, you're just so much happier, right? And life becomes more about ease and fun and less about struggle. I've even had my children, my children are grown now, of course, but I even had my daughter say, I love this new mom. You're so relaxed. You're so great. You're so fun. Because I was always just so worried about getting everything done all the time and having all of this on my shoulders. And anyway, worked through a lot of that. Making aligned decisions, right? Making the decisions according to your strategy and authority. For generators, waiting to respond, and from our sacral, right? Discovering your purpose. And it's different for everyone. So think about that. I know that, Pamela, you talk about the thing that is success for you, right? And how different that is. So would you share one thing that would mean success for you?
Well, like we had talked about, my biggest thing is just being able to bless other people.
Mhm.
So being able to be in a position financially so that we can be able to bless other people financially, whether it's paying for someone's groceries, paying for their meal somewhere, just some way to give back to someone. And it doesn't even have to be something that they're going to know who did it for them. Because it's not about the recognition for me. It's about the ability to be able to bless. That's
Right.
and that's one reason I love what I do with the Theta Healing, because I see how it affects people's lives and helps changes their lives.
Mhm. Absolutely. One thing that would define success for me is to be able to help women successfully find their purpose and transition well into the second half of life, right? And to help younger women make aligned decisions that they're more comfortable with. I think about, if I had learned this earlier, how wonderful life would be. We have one more. Who else would like to share one thing that would mean success to you? Well, they're coming on. For some people, it can be, the American dream, which is great. They want a big house and be comfortable, to take care of their family, right? Have nice cars and go on trips and travel the world. Success looks different for all of us. Oh, that's just the dog. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think
One
for
more person?
for me, success would be, being able to provide for my children, even though I do have some adult children and smaller children, but not having to question like, oh, do I have money for that? But just to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to send them to college. I'm going to buy them a car. I'm going to get them set up for the future, so they're not struggling the way I had to struggle like growing up.
Excellent. It's different for everyone. And the beautiful thing about human design is it's not a formula to learn how to manifest. It's not a religion. It's not a formula to necessarily for personal success, but yet it is, right? And because of these things here, knowing your purpose, knowing your authentic self, making the aligned decisions, and lifting your vibration, not living in shadow, right? And the shadow in there, money can be part of it. There is definitely one of the gates. I don't remember the name of it because I am still fairly new to this and need to refer to the source material. But there is one that talks about abundance, right? And the mindset you have about that. And definitely the way I was raised was to, we could only buy the Kmart sneakers and the plain socks. And it was always about scarcity and being able to, how do I work through that shadow so that I can raise that vibration? So anyways, that is what human design can do for you. All right. I think I'm almost out of time. There may be time for a few more questions, but if you have additional questions, please feel free to email me at forkcoaching@yahoo.com. Again, my name is Paula Liotine, and I'd be happy to do that. I'd like to also offer for the next 2 weeks for everybody that's on the call or that watches the video, if you contact me at Forkcoaching, I would run your human design chart and offer a free 30-minute initial reading, and then we can talk about potential next steps for you. Are there any questions?
This is really cool. Before I moved, I actually bought a few books that was for human design.
Oh, awesome. Who were the authors?
Off of Amazon. Oh, I think I bought 2 or 3. It was just, I was looking up like astrology. I got into energy healing to help people with addiction. And I was at, and I muscle tested, would this help people in addiction? And I got a yes. So I was like, okay, I need these books then. And Adam and I want to open up a holistic healing center to help people in addiction and just get like really clear on their goals. I mean, there's going to be so much to it, but
awesome.
These books were ones that was downloaded to me and I was guided to buy. There's 2 different authors, so I don't know we just moved, so I don't exactly know where they're at right
Oh,
this
that's
second.
okay. All right.
But one was human design. Oh, I don't know. If you told me, I could probably tell you, but
Okay. Well, one
I don't know.
of the big authors is Karen Curry Parker.
I think one might been a woman and one may have been a man.
Yes. And then there's Jovian, Jovian. Human design. I don't know. There's several out there.
I'd have to find the
Anyways,
book.
exciting.
But yeah, so I love this because the more you can understand yourself and what your strengths are and your weaknesses, I mean, just gives you so much more empowerment.
I agree. Thank you. Other questions before we run out of time?
I'm just absorbing. That was so much information, but so good, and so much to consider.
Sounds very useful.
Mm-hmm.
What's
your favorite thing about it? What's your favorite part of this design?
Oh, wow.
Like, what's your absolute favorite?
I think that it's really hard, but I think the most useful thing for me was truly understanding my authority and learning to wait to respond and to trust my gut and not be in my head. And it has been amazing, the life change just from that.
So I would highly recommend you guys, if you're interested in just, getting with Paula and reaching out, taking advantage of the offer she's making, because it's definitely going to bring some enlightenment to you. I know, Adam, you already posted what you think you are, but it'd be interesting to see if you're correct.
What do you think you are, Adam?
I put a projector.
You might be. A lot of people who like to coach, especially the type of thing you're talking about with like an addiction type of a thing, healers are projectors. I have a daughter who's a projector, and your energy is very interesting if you are one, Adam, and you have to have time to decompress and to not be around other people. And it might actually, I don't know if you're a married or connected person and you live with someone, but if you are, it might benefit you a couple of times a week to not sleep with that person, to actually be away from all other energies for a short time. So that may or may not go over well with a partner, but you might be able to explain why that would be a good thing. But definitely need much more time to decompress and get your energy back.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else guess what they are? That's fine. That's a fun game.
I've always been a good manifester, but it slowed down the past few years a little bit because I didn't get as much clarity on what I want to manifest. As you get older and you realize you can manifest husbands, houses, stuff, but sometimes they come with a zinger. You get a little cautious. But now I like to keep manifesting.
There you go. And you could be a manifesting generator if you have a lot of energy too. That's an absolute possibility.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Would you say this gives a better picture than what you would get from an astrological chart?
Yes, it's a little deeper, definitely.
Deeper?
A little different, a little deeper.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Pamela, any last things? I think we've got 2 minutes and we're done.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. I know you put a lot of information out there. So for anybody who, wants to reach out to you, we'll put your email in the chat for them so they can reach out to you and connect with you. And, and again, my team, I would highly recommend that you reach out to Paula and just see what you find out, because this really was interesting for me to have that.
Pamela and team, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share a little bit about human design with all of you and everyone else on YouTube that might be watching today.
Thank you.
And again, everybody, if this is your first time with us, we do not believe anything happens for an accident. You are meant to find this recording. So we're so glad that you joined us. Please like to channel and subscribe if you found this interesting, and make sure you